What if I told you, for your next gig, instead of packing all this, maybe you could just pack one of these? Well, hello there again. It's Al. Welcome to Al's Drum Hang, and today I'm going to talk to you about an instrument you've probably dissed in the past and said, I'm not going to play one of those. Cajon. What is that? Some hipster coffee house thing. Well, you know what? I thought that same thing too until I played a cajon on a couple of gigs and started fooling around with it, and it's actually a lot of fun, and it just brings you another tool in your toolbox and the ability to play some places and do some things you may not normally play and do. So let's check it out. First off, what is a cajon? Okay, a cajon is it's just a box. It's a box-shaped instrument. It's originally from Peru. It's got 5 hard sides, and the back one has a sound hole, and the front side is thinner. It's made of a thinner sheet of wood. This is called the tapa. Okay, that's the main striking surface of the instrument, and most modern cajons have screws on the top of the tapa, which you can screw in and out in order to tune the sound. If you strike more in the center of the tapa, you're going to get a bass tone. If you strike up in the corners of the tapa, you get a high-pitched sound. Also, you'll notice that more of the internal snares that run behind the tapa engage when we hit it up here, whereas this gives you just a cleaner bass note, generally speaking. So, what is the whole idea behind the cajon? Well, it's a portable drum set, but it's much more than that. Back in its very earliest incarnations, it's thought that slave musicians in Spanish colonies in the New World would take fruit boxes or dresser drawers or whatever they could get their hands on and play on them, because there was actually a prohibition. It was forbidden for the slaves to own musical instruments. So they would just have these boxes. What? It's just a box, but it's also a musical instrument. Later on, you could find flamenco musicians such as Paco de Lucia and Pepe Ebano, who incorporated it into their rhythms and their music and made it popular. And from there, it became part of culture, music, and like I said, a lot of acoustic musicians glommed onto it and its rhythmic possibilities, and now you find it being played in all sorts of genres. Heck, there's a local blues band who plays acoustic and the drummer brings a cajon. Blues. I've played cajon for jazz before. It can be done. Miking up a cajon is much simpler than miking up a drum set. A lot of people, like me, just use a bass drum mic pointed right into the sound hole on a boom. Pretty easy. Other people prefer the slap of a SM57 type microphone. Once again, just pointed straight in the sound hole. There's another approach, and you need a special type of microphone. If you take a boundary mic, I use this Sennheiser E602 II, like the one I use in my bass drum. You can just slide it right in the sound hole, place it on the floor of the cone, and run the cord out the sound hole. and that'll get a nice sound as well, and it's really easy. You don't have to worry about knocking it around. Of course, you can also pair that with an external microphone pointed in the sound hole like usual. Okay, now the basics of how to play the cajon are dead simple. So just follow with me, don't get lost, okay? First, you sit on it. Now, I've seen people play them mounted in stands, but where's the fun in that? Next, rock it back slightly. You want it pointed up and away. Don't leave it sitting on the ground. You want to tilt back a little bit, just like your mom told you not to in the nice chairs, okay? You play the tapa with your hands, okay? Use your fingertips. Use the sides and heels of your hands. The ball part of your thumbs are really good for all together. And then the heel of your hand kind of like is the pivot point right here. It's all in wrists and around the heel of the hand, okay? Thump the tapa lightly with the balls of your fingers, and then use whipping motion and contact up here in the corners, kind of like with this part, the backs of your fingers, kind of like the first part of your palm, and then let your fingers just snap in there. If your hands start hurting, you're doing it too hard. You might need to mic up, or you might need to tell the guitarist to turn down. Believe it or not, sometimes it gets too loud for a cajon, and you've got to adjust. Remember, if your hands are hurting, you're playing too hard. Now, that's just the basics of it playing a cajon, but the cool thing about playing cajon is that you can add so much more to it. A lot of people will use a bass pedal on a cajon, striking it on the tapa for that bass note with their foot like they're accustomed to. Some people just reverse the pedal and hit it with their heel. Some folks use an actual custom, like purpose-built cajon bass drum pedal that slides underneath it and clamps to it. Whichever way you do, you've got to be careful that you use a soft beater and you don't put too much force on it, because the top is pretty thin and you can split it. Another thing I like to do is play with shakers in one hand and play the tapa in the other. That can be really fun for a texture change when the music changes down or is ramping up or gets quiet. You might also try putting bells around one or both wrists. See what that does. That's a cool timbre change and gives you some options. Also, I bought this. This is a little 4-jingle foot tambourine that Meinl makes, and it just straps around my left foot, and I use it to accentuate the backbeats, which is pretty fun, pretty cool, and gives it a little bit of visual flair at the show too. You can even try playing with brushes against the tapa. I don't do it very often, but it's a thing that you can do. Another thing that manufacturers like Pearl and Meinl do a lot of little add-ons that clip on or Velcro onto the sides or the front of the cajon, and it's really interesting to see how that can add layers to your sound. So in short, stop being a snob about cajones. They're really fun. They've got a lot of sonic possibilities. They fit certain types of performances. You can get in venues that normally you wouldn't be able to bring in a drum set, either because of sound or because of space. And the last great thing about cajones, and let me tell you, this is the best thing, they pack up super easy. Don't forget to like, subscribe, enable notifications. See you next time on The Drum Hang.